the valley as if the earth itself had angered it. It clawed at the ancient trees until their trunks groaned in protest, until their roots trembled beneath the frozen ground. Snow didn't fall. It attacked, slashing sideways in violent sheets, blinding the world behind walls of white breath and fury. Somewhere inside that chaos moved a woman. Lyra, the forgotten Omega, the one whispered about in every pack and pitied in none. They called her cursed, and maybe she was. Yet even curses learn to crawl through storms. Her figure was only a smear of motion against the whiteout, stitched together from grit and stubborn breath. Each step was an act of defiance. Each heartbeat, borrowed from something greater than will. Across her shoulders lay a burden that might have broken a lesser soul, the weight of a great silver wolf, his fur matted with blood, his body heavy as grief. The crimson soaked through the torn fabric of her coat, spreading warmth that didn't belong in a world this cold. His flank lifted once, barely, a small rebellion against death. Lyra's lips were split and raw where the wind had bitten them. She tasted iron but couldn't tell whose blood it was anymore, his, hers, or the storm's. Her eyes burned, half from the cold, half from the tears she refused to let fall. Still, she kept moving. She couldn't stop, not after what she'd done. Not after the promise she made beneath the shattered moon. I won't lose another one, she whispered, her voice breaking before it reached her own ears. The wind stole the words and carried them away like secrets. Time lost meaning. Hours blurred into white, white into nothing. The world had no edges anymore, just a vast expanse of cold and heartbeat, rhythm and pain. Every few steps, the wolf's paw dragged, leaving long trails of red through the snow. She hitched his body higher on her shoulders, bones creaking, teeth clenched. Something cracked in her neck, but she didn't care. Stay with me, she muttered, voice trembling. Please. There was no answer, only the rasp of shallow breathing. Yet she kept talking, words tumbling out like a prayer to keep him tethered to life, as though her voice alone could drag both of them through the storm. The trees thinned, the air sharpened, the sound changed, a low rush in the distance, muffled but unmistakable. Water. Impossible in this season, yet there it was, a whisper of a river still moving beneath the ice. If she could reach it, follow it downstream, maybe there'd be shelter. Maybe someone would help before they smelled what she truly was. Her knees gave out, pain flared through her leg, sharp and cruel. She fell hard, the snow bursting around her Ike a white explosion. The wolf slid from her shoulders with a heavy thud. For a moment, she just knelt there, breathing in shallow gasps, staring at him. The sky above spun, gray, endless, pitiless. The storm pressed down like a living weight, squeezing the breath from her chest. And then, it stirred. The old fear, the one that had lived inside her since the night she lost everything. It began as a faint pulse beneath her ribs, soft, familiar, dangerous. Then it spread, heat snaking through her veins until her blood hummed. The silver fire. It moved beneath her skin like trapped lightning. Beautiful, terrible, unforgiving. It always came when she was close to the edge, a wild, defiant power that refused to let her die. Not now, she whispered, pressing her palm against her chest. But the flame never listened. It never had. The snow trembled around her, glowing faintly, as though moonlight had escaped from beneath the earth. The air thickened with energy. The wolf stirred beside her, his breathing steadier, less ragged. Lyra stared down at her trembling hands, at the light seeping through the cracks between her fingers. Panic clawed at her throat. If anyone saw this, if any pack caught sight of what she truly was, they'd call it witchcraft. They'd call her the same thing they always had. Cursed. An Omega who should never have been born. The light flickered and faded. She let out a long, shuddering breath and pulled the wolf closer, folding her arms around his cold body. His heartbeat pulsed against her wrist, faint, but there. That's enough, she whispered. That's enough for now. Above them, the storm began to shift. The furious howl softened, its anger cooling into something almost curious. Somewhere in the distance, a sound answered it, deep, ancient, fretted with command. A wolf's call, but not one she recognized. Lyra's head lifted. The wind whipped her hair across her face as she squinted through the veil of snow. Nothing, only the ghostly shimmer of the half-frozen river glinting like broken glass. But she felt it, that gaze, unseen yet heavy, watching her from beyond the storm. Something old, something that knew her name. Her strength gave out. She lay beside the silver wolf, cheek pressed to the ice. Her lashes froze together as she blinked. Still, she smiled faintly, a fragile, quiet smile. I kept my promise, she murmured into the snow. The river answered with a soft crack, ice shifting in reply. Then silence, vast and holy. The storm hushed, as though the world itself had stopped to listen. Snow still fell, but gently now, lazy, drifting flakes landing on her lashes, her hair, her open palm. Her heartbeat slowed, the pain dulled, slipping away from her body as though it no longer belonged to her. For the first time in Horse, she could hear her own breathing, shallow, uneven, but hers. The sound filled the quiet like a fragile song. The river whispered beneath the ice, the current speaking in low, secret tones. She imagined it carrying her words somewhere safe, somewhere beyond the cold. She stared at the faint shimmer on the water's surface, the reflection of a moon she could not see through the clouds. Her body felt heavy, her thoughts light. They floated, drifting toward the places she once belonged, toward faces that had turned away. The pack, the night she ran, the look of horror in their eyes when her power flared. The silence that followed, crueler than any wound. Maybe this is what peace feels like, she breathed. The words barely stirred the air. Then something deep in the ground answered, a pulse, soft but steady. She thought it was the river shifting, until it came again, stronger, rhythmic. A heartbeat, but not hers. And then, a sound. A howl. Not a cry of hunger or pain, but a call. Deep, commanding, ancient. Her eyes flew open. The sound pressed against her chest until her own heart responded, echoing it in rhythm. It was power, old and alive. The hairs on her arms rose. The air grew warmer, carrying the impossible scent of pine and smoke, warmth where there should only be deathly cold. The wolf beside her stirred, chest rising with a ragged breath, ears twitching toward that faraway call. Lyra pushed herself upright, her muscles screaming in protest. She reached out, brushing her fingers over his fur. He burned with fever, but he lived. That should have been enough reason to keep fighting. But she was fading, her strength unraveling thread by thread. And then, movement, a shadow through the veil of snow. Tall, broad, walking with purpose. For a moment, she thought her mind had broken, conjuring ghosts out of exhaustion. But the rhythm of his steps matched the pulse she'd felt beneath the earth. Her first thought was fear. Her second, disbelief. No one should be here. Not this far into the wilderness. The figure stopped a few paces away. She couldn't see his face, only the faint gold of eyes catching what little light the storm offered. Neither moved. The storm seemed to hold its breath with them. The scent reached her first, sharp, clean, edged with dominance. Alpha. Her instincts screamed for her to run. But her body refused, and something deep inside didn't want to. Then he spoke, one word, low and rough, cutting through the wind. Don't. It wasn't a threat. It was command. The kind that slid through bone and settled in blood. Her heart stuttered, answering before her mind could. He stepped closer, and moonlight brushed across his face, strong jaw, a scar along his cheek, eyes like molten gold burning against the gray world. He looked down at the wounded wolf, then at her. You carried him, he said quietly. How far? Lyra's lips barely moved. 6 miles. Something flickered across his expression, surprise, maybe even respect. He knelt beside the silver wolf, hand hovering just above the wound. When his palm met fur, the air changed, humming low like the earth itself was exhaling. The wolf sighed, a shudder leaving his body as the pain released him. Lyra swayed. The world tilted. Before she could fall, a hand steadied her, warm, firm, impossibly gentle. Easy, he murmured. His voice rumbled low, a sound she felt more than heard. She wanted to ask who he was, how he found her, why he cared, but the warmth spreading through her skin silenced every question. It felt like sunlight breaking through the cracks of ice. The last thing she remembered was his voice, soft against the storm. You're safe now? I've got you. Then darkness took her, not cruel, but kind. A deep, dreamless sleep. The first thing she felt was warmth. Real, steady warmth, sliding across her skin like a memory of summer after an endless winter. She didn't open her eyes at first, afraid the illusion would vanish, afraid the storm would still be there, waiting. Then came the sounds, the steady crackle of a fire, the faint hiss of melting snow, and the gentle rhythm of breath. The air smelled of cedar and pine, smoke and something else, wild, untamed, and dominant. The scent of a wolf. Her body ached, but it was the ache of survival. Each pulse of pain reminded her, I'm still alive. She shifted slightly and felt softness beneath her, a pelt draped over her like a promise. Someone had kept her warm. Someone had kept her alive. Slowly, cautiously, she opened her eyes. The cave glowed in shades of amber and gold, its walls alive with the dance of firelight. Veins of ice shimmered faintly along the rough stone, reflecting the glow like hidden stars trapped in stone. The air was thick with warmth and silence, the kind that hummed after a storm had spent its rage. On the far side of the fire, a man moved, his back turned, shoulders broad, strength carved into every motion. The light caught the edges of his hair, dark and still wet at the ends, and when he lifted another log, a pale scar gleamed down his arm, sharp and deliberate. Then he turned. Golden eyes met hers, bright, clear, predatory. Eyes that didn't belong to a man at all. Lyra froze. Every instinct screamed one word. Alpha. He didn't look startled to find her awake. He looked like he'd been waiting. You should rest, he said, his voice low and rough, a sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. It wasn't a suggestion. It was command. Lyra swallowed hard. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She tried to ask where she was, but he answered. Read before the words could form. The northern ridge, he said simply. You crossed my border. He stepped closer, and the fire caught his face, strong jaw, shadowed beard, a beauty too sharp to be kind. A thin silver scar ran from his temple to the corner of his mouth, tugging slightly when he spoke. He looked like a man who had faced too many winters and refused to die in any of them. You carried one of mine, he said quietly. For a heartbeat, Lyra didn't understand. Then it hit her, the weight across her shoulders, the trail of blood in the snow. Is he? He lives. Relief cracked something open in her chest, only for his next words to seal it shut again. Tell me, he said, voice cool as steel. Why does an Omega with no pack drag a poisoned wolf across my lands in the middle of a blizzard? The words struck like a blade. Lyra forced herself upright. The fur slipped from her shoulders, revealing the torn sleeves of her coat, blood dried in dark streaks across her arm. Her pulse jumped, but she lifted her chin anyway. I don't owe you an explanation. A faint curve tugged at the corner of his mouth, not quite a smile. Maybe not, he said. But you crossed into my territory, carried my brother through death's door, and nearly burned yourself doing it. That earns at least one question. His brother. The words echoed in her head like thunder. She turned toward the far side of the cave, where another figure lay under heavy furs. The same silver fur she remembered. The same scar at the shoulder. Breathing slow, steady, alive. I didn't know he was yours, she whispered. I know, the Alpha said. That's the only reason you're still breathing. He didn't say it as a threat, just truth. And somehow, that truth unnerved her more than any growl could have. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pulsed, filled with the weight of his presence, the crackle of the fire, the storm's muffled growl outside. His gaze studied her like a wolf measuring the strength of another predator. Finally, his voice broke the stillness. You said nothing while you froze. No name, no plea, but you said his life mattered. Why? Lyra stared into the fire instead of at him. The flames blurred. Her eyes stung for reasons that had nothing to do with the smoke. Because no one ever said mine did, she whispered. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, perhaps pity, though she doubted an alpha like him allowed himself either. He sat across from her, movements deliberate, careful never to turn his back. You should eat, he said after a moment. Then tell me what hunted you. I wasn't hunted. His brow arched, one golden eye glinting. Every scent I caught on the wind says otherwise. She clenched her jaw. He didn't press. Not yet. He simply tossed another log into the fire. Sparks leapt and faded between them, bright, brief, and gone. The silence stretched, thick but not hostile. Something else lived in it, a strange, heavy awareness neither of them wanted to name. Finally, he said, I'm Kale. The name landed like a shift in the air. She had heard it before, whispered between travelers and rogues. The Alpha King of the Northern Bloodline. The wolf who united the broken packs of the Frostlands. Dangerous, merciless, bound to no one. I know who you are, she said. Then you know why I can't let a stranger with silver fire under her skin walk free. Her gaze snapped up. He knew. The mark. The fire. The secret she had buried since the night everything burned. He shouldn't have known, yet his eyes said he did. Don't worry, he added softly. If I wanted you dead, the storm would have finished the job. He leaned back, watching her, not mocking, not kind. Measuring. The faintest curve touched his mouth, something between amusement and respect. Lyra pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. The air suddenly felt smaller. The heat of the fire mingled with the warmth radiating from him, closing the space between them until her own heartbeat sounded loud in her ears. You carried him 6 miles, Cale said at last. That earns my attention, Lyra. Her breath caught. I never told you my name. You didn't have to, he said. His voice was quiet, final, like a truth the mountains themselves couldn't deny. Lyra turned her face away, afraid of what else he might see. His gaze didn't waver. It anchored her, heavy and unrelenting. The silence between them deepened, pulling at her chest like gravity. The fire cracked, startling her. She looked up just as Cale moved, not fast, but with purpose. He crouched beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth rolling off him like a living pulse. Power hummed under his skin, low and steady. You're still bleeding, he murmured. His hand brushed her arm near the torn sleeve. The touch burned, not from heat, but from something older. Recognition. Instinct. She pulled back sharply. I said I don't need help. And I said you've earned my attention, he replied, calm as a quiet threat. Then softer, don't mistake pride for strength. Pride won't stop infection. He dipped a cloth into a bowl of melted snow and wrung it out. Steam rose between them. Without asking again, he began to clean the blood from her arm. The Alpha King, healer's hands steady, movements careful, deliberate. It didn't fit the stories she'd heard. She should have resisted, but his voice carried weight, not command this time, but something deeper, something that made resistance feel hollow. So she sat there, silent, while his fingers brushed over her skin, wiping away the dirt. Tea and blood with impossible gentleness. When he was done, he didn't move away. His gaze lingered, quiet, searching, as though memorizing the face of someone who shouldn't exist. Your pulse jumps every time I touch you, he said softly. She stared at the fire. You're imagining it. No, he said, I'm not. There was no arrogance in his tone, only truth, and that made it worse. Her cheeks burned. At last, he leaned back, resting his arms on his knees. The fire carved his jaw in gold and shadow. I should hate you, he said. My men think you're part of the poisoning. Some want your head. Then why didn't you let them take it? His gaze flickered, and the faintest trace of something unreadable crossed his face. Because you didn't run. She frowned. That's it? That's enough. The air between them shifted again. The quiet became electric. Outside, the storm howled down the mountains like an old god mourning. Inside, the cave throbbed with heat and unspoken questions. Cale glanced toward his brother, still sleeping beneath the firs. The poison was wolfsbane, he said, voice low. Laced with silver dust. Only a skilled hand could have crafted it. Someone who knew what it would do. His eyes locked on hers. You know anything about that? She wanted to lie. Lying had kept her alive. But the truth pulled at her tongue. I know enough to hate whoever made it, she said. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He studied her a long moment, then nodded. It'll do for now. You shouldn't stay here, he added. When the storm breaks, I'll have you escorted south. I'm not leaving. His head tilted slightly. You think you have a choice? Lyra met his gaze without flinching. I carried your brother through hell because I couldn't let him die. I won't crawl away now because you're afraid of what I am. For the first time, she saw it, that subtle shift behind his eyes. Surprise. Then a slow, ghosted smile, not cruel, but human. I'm not afraid of you, Lyra. She tilted her head, voice quiet but sharp. Then what are you afraid of? He didn't answer. The silence said enough. Cale rose, his shadow stretching long against the cave wall. I'll bring food, he said, his tone unreadable. Don't leave the fire. As he turned toward the cave mouth, the stormlight caught his outline, tall, commanding, carved in flame and frost. When he stepped out, the air seemed to follow him, thinner without his presence. Lyra exhaled slowly, staring at her hands. Beneath her skin, faint threads of silver shimmered, weak but alive. She clenched her fists until the glow dimmed. He had seen it. The cave roof glows like poured amber, firelight breathing across stone until the wet walls gleam and the thin veins of ice catch flame like captive stars. A single figure moves beyond the fire, broad-shouldered, steady, dark hair damp at the ends, a pale scar flashing down his arm each time he lifts another log. He turns before she can speak. Gold eyes meet hers, bright, startling, too clear for any human gaze. Lyra goes still. Every instinct inside her names him in one word, Alpha. He isn't surprised she's awake. He looks as if he has been waiting. Rest, he says, a low, rough voice shaped by silence but certain enough to leave no argument anywhere to stand. Her throat is dry. She tries to ask where they are, but he answers before the question finds air. The northern ridge. You crossed my border. He steps closer and the fire throws his face into relief. A jaw cut from hard winter, a faint beard, beauty carved rather than born. A fine silver scar runs from temple to mouth, tugging slightly when he speaks, the mark of a man who's seen too many winters and survived all of them. You carried one of mine, he says, soft but unblinking. For a heartbeat she doesn't understand, and then she does. The weight over her shoulders, the blood, the miles of white. Is he? He lives. Relief loosens something tight in her chest, and tightens again at his next words. Now tell me why an Omega with no pack drags a poisoned wolf through my lands in a blizzard. The question lands like a challenge. Lyra forces herself upright. The fur slides from her shoulders. Torn sleeves show the dried smear of blood along her arm. Her pulse kicks. She hates how small she feels beneath his attention, how easily his presence fills the cave. I don't owe you an explanation, she says, steadier than she feels. One corner of his mouth lifts, not a smile, an acknowledgement. Maybe not, but you crossed into my territory, hauled my brother through death's door, and nearly burned yourself doing it. That earns at least a question. His brother. The words echo. She looks toward the dim end of the cave where another shape lies under heavy furs, the same silver coat, the same shoulder scar, breath moving slow and even. I didn't know he was yours, she whispers. I know, he replies, without heat. That's why you're still breathing. It isn't threat, just fact, and somehow the truth of it shivers colder than any blade. Silence stretches, broken only by the pop of sap in the fire. He studies her the way wolves study a storm, testing its strength, deciding whether to brace or bow. Then, gentler, you said nothing while you froze. No name, no plea, but you said his life mattered. Why? Lyra watches the flames blur, eyes burning from more than smoke. Because no one ever said mine did. Something flickers across his face, surprise, perhaps pity, quickly shuttered. He lowers to the far side of the fire, movements slow, deliberate. Never turning his back. You should eat, he says. Then tell me what hunted you. I wasn't hunted. An eyebrow lifts. Every scent on the wind disagrees. She sets her jaw. He doesn't press, he tosses another log. Sparks leap, brief and bright, and fall between them. The quiet that follows isn't comfortable, but it isn't hostile either. It is something stranger, an uneasy recognition neither of them names. At last he speaks. I'm Kale. The name alters the air. She has heard it whispered by travelers, Alpha King of the Northern Bloodline. The wolf who united the broken packs of the Frostlands. Dangerous, loyal only to his own. I know who you are, she says. Then you know why I can't let a stranger with silver fire beneath her skin walk away. Her gaze snaps up. He knows, the mark, the fire, everything she's concealed. He shouldn't, yet his eyes say he does. Don't worry, he adds quietly. If I'd wanted you dead, the storm would have finished it. He leans back, watching, not mocking, not kind, measuring. The faintest curve touches his mouth, somewhere between respect and amusement. Lyra draws the fur closer. The cave feels smaller. The heat of the fire and the quiet heat of him seem to fold the space in. Her own heartbeat sounds too loud. You carried him 6 miles, Kale says. That earns my attention, Lyra. Her breath catches. I never told you my name. You didn't have to, he answers, simple and final, like a truth the mountain would sign for him. She looks away, afraid of what else he might read. His gaze stays steady, weight like winter. The fire cracks. The sound startles her to glance up. In that stray heartbeat he moves, not fast, just purposeful, crouching beside her until she can feel the quiet thrum of power beneath his skin. You're still bleeding, he murmurs. His hand brushes near the torn sleeve. Her skin flares under the contact, not heat, something older, recognition drawn tight through nerve and bone. She pulls back. I said I don't need help. And I said you've earned my attention, he returns, calm as stone. Don't mistake pride for strength. Pride won't stop infection. He dips a cloth into a bowl of melted snow, wrings it out, and reaches again. The Alpha King tending a wound with a healer's care is not a story she's ever heard, and yet here it is. She could resist. She should. But his voice has gravity, and resistance feels hollow against it. She lets him clean the blood from her skin, fingers steady, precise, careful in a way she didn't think an alpha could be. When he finishes, he doesn't move away. He studies her face as if committing what he sees to memory. Your pulse jumps every time I touch you, he says softly. You're imagining it. No, he says, I'm not. There's no arrogance in it. Oh. NLY observation, which somehow burns more. At last he sits back, forearms braced on his knees, firelight cutting gold along his jaw. I should hate you, he says. My men think you're part of the poisoning. Some want your head. Then why didn't you let them take it? Because you didn't run. That's all? That's enough. The air shifts, alive, electric. Outside, the storm mourns down the mountain. Inside, breath and thought hum in the stone. Kale glances to his brother beneath the firs. Wolfsbane, he says, low. Laced with silver dust. A skilled hand. Someone who knew exactly what it would do. His eyes return to her. Do you know anything about that? She wants to lie. Lies have kept her alive. But with him, deceit feels small. I know enough to hate whoever made it. Not an answer. It's the only one I have. He studies, then nods. Good enough, for now. You shouldn't stay, he adds. When the storm breaks, I'll have you escorted south. I'm not leaving. You think you have a choice? I carried your brother through hell because I couldn't let him die, she says, meeting his gaze without flinching. I won't crawl away now because you're afraid of what I am. It catches him off guard. A slow, ghosted smile. Not mockery, recognition. I'm not afraid of you, Lyra. Then what are you afraid of? He doesn't answer. The silence weighs more than any admission. He rises. I'll bring food. Don't leave the fire. At the cave mouth, his silhouette cuts tall against the snowlight, a presence that leaves an echo after it's gone. Lyra exhales. The air feels thinner without him. She looks at her hands. Tiny motes of silver flicker beneath her skin, faint, almost nothing, but there. She closes her fists until the shine gutters out. He saw. She knows he saw. And still, he didn't call her monster. He didn't flinch. He didn't reach for a weapon. He only looked at her as if she were a puzzle worth solving. When he returns, he tosses a strip of dried meat across to her and sits opposite. Firelight dances between them like a fragile truce. You could have left me to die, she says. Why didn't you? He watches the flames, not her. Because when I found you, the storm stopped for 3 heartbeats. A beat. I don't know what that means yet. I intend to find out. Night presses against the cave like a living thing. The wind has gentled, but its voice still threads through stone, low, sorrowing, echoing the rhythm of Lyra's pulse. Kale stands at the entrance, a dark outline cut from pale snowlight. Lyra lies near the fire, eyes half closed, body aching, mind too full to rest. Sleep drags her under anyway. The dream comes hard and sharp. She is back in the valley where the pines burn blue under moonlight. The air reeks of smoke and fear. Voices shout her name, not in love, not even in rage, but in terror. Monster. Cursed. Run. She sees herself as they saw her, a girl on her knees, trembling, hands slick with silver fire. The alpha's son lies before her, breath shallow, skin seared where her power touched. She hadn't meant to harm him, she'd only tried to stop the fight. But the flame inside obeys no one. The pack drags her to the clearing. A circle is burned into her shoulder with molten iron. The smell of her own flesh twists with their cries. Cursed Omega, bring her near, and death follows. The dream fractures. Fire becomes snow. Shouts thin into wind. She's alone again, walking away from all she knew, the mark still raw and shining. She whispers to the moon, I'll never use it again. I'll never let anyone see. Even asleep, the promise echoes. Lyra wakes with ash on her tongue. The fire is low, embers breathing faintly. Her hands shake as she pushes upright and drags the fur close, hoping the tremor can hide beneath it. Kale turns from the entrance. He has been watching the storm loosen into a pallid dawn, and meets her gaze. The gold in his eyes is softer now, unreadable. You talk in your sleep, he says. She stills. What did I say? Names, please. A promise to the moon. She looks away, pretending to fix the blanket. I was dreaming. I know. A pause. You hide your scent. Her head snaps up. What? Ash. Pine resin. You mask it. Wolves do that when they don't want to be found. His tone is curious, not accusing, but it still presses the raw places. Because scent means belonging, she answers. And I belong nowhere. The words hang heavier than silence. He doesn't reply at once. Firelight shivers in his eyes as he weighs her. At last. A wolf without scent is a ghost, Kale says. You shouldn't have to be a ghost. She lets out one brittle laugh. Easy for an alpha king. You think titles make belonging simple? He waits. When she doesn't answer, his voice lowers. Power doesn't save you from loneliness, Lyra. It just gives you thicker walls to hide behind. Something in the way he says it tells her he isn't speaking about her anymore. She wants to ask, but he turns to the cave mouth again, shoulders squared into control. Underneath, she feels the same emptiness that gnaws at her. A low sound breaks the quiet, a rasping breath from shadow. Kale is there in an instant, kneeling by the fur-draped shape. Lyra follows, her pulse climbing. The silver wolf stirs, tail twitches, eyes flutter open, and a faint silver light glints within, weak but undeniable. Kale presses his hand to his brother's neck, frowns. The poison should have kept him under for days. Lyra crouches opposite and meets the wolf's gaze. For a breath their eyes hold, and something warm vase between them, a small recognition that prickles her palms. The shimmer beneath her skin flickers, moonlight in water, barely there. Kale sees it. What did you do? Nothing, she says. Don't lie. I swear, she says quickly, shaking her head. I only touched him when he stopped breathing. I thought I'd lost him. And then he lived. The weight in his voice tightens her chest. He isn't angry. Not yet, just measuring what stands before him. She can't bear the look. I didn't mean to, she says. It happens when I'm afraid. Or desperate. That's why she stops, but he's already assembling the truth. Your pack turned on you. She nods once, eyes down. I hurt someone. I didn't know how to stop it. After that, no one would come near me. They said if I lost control again, the whole valley would burn. Kale's brother groans softly and sinks back into sleep. Kale rises, looking down at Lyra. You healed him with the same power that ruined you. Maybe, she whispers. Or maybe I only delayed what's coming. He steps closer. His shadow falls across her. Don't speak like that. Why not? It's true. Because I don't believe in fate that cruel. The words are simple, but they land with the weight of iron. They stand in the quiet that follows, the storm outside finally spent, the rocks singing only with wind. Lyra folds her arms around herself. You should keep your distance. Whatever this is, it isn't safe. Safe, Kale says softly, eyes on the faint glow pulsing under her skin, has never been alive. He turns back to the fire, lays on another log. Sparks leap, skittering light across stone, across her face, across the scar that brands her shoulder. She watches each spark fade and thinks of every place she has slept since exile, ditches, barns, hollow trees, and how none of them felt less lonely than this cave feels now. Kale doesn't look back, but his next words carry. When morning comes, we'll speak to my council. They'll want to meet the healer who pulled a poisoned wolf from death. Lyra's stomach tightens. And if they call me monster? Then they answer to me, he says, rough as rock. The fire cracks brighter, as if it believes him. Lyra closes her eyes. For the first time since the night the world burned, she lets herself imagine she might not be the only one carrying a curse. Morning arrives gray and breathless. Mist drifts like ghosts between the pines, fingering the ridgeline as Kale leads Lyra higher. The air tastes of iron and meltwater. Frost grinds under their boots. They don't speak much. The silence between them has changed, not sharp now, but watchful, charged with something unnamed. Lyra's shoulder aches beneath the brand. Beneath her skin the faint shimmer of her inner fire moves, restless, anting out. She holds it down by will alone. Kale's nearness doesn't calm it. It stirs the energy, as if his presence calls it awake. They climb until forest thins to stone and wind. At the last rise, Lyra stops short. Carved into the mountain yawns an ancient archway, cracked, massive, its edges lined with sigils she does not recognize and somehow understands. Lunar markings spiral across the stone, faint silver and softly pulsing. The air hums with a quiet reverence. This, Kale says, wind tugging his hair, is what I wanted you to see. The old shrine of the Moon Mother. Sealed for generations. I've read of it, she whispers. I thought it was legend. Most things are, until they wake. They step inside. The chamber widens into a cathedral of stone. Crystal veins lace the walls, scattering the dim light like starlight underwater. Every surface bears history. Wolves in ochre and ash. Moons in their phases circling the high dome. At the far end a mural older than memory holds the wall. a woman wrapped in silver flame carrying a dying wolf beneath a blood-red moon. The figures seem almost to breathe, as if one more breath would move them free of stone. She carried him through the storm, Lyra whispers, voice cracked by recognition. Kale moves beside her, tracing the painting's lines with his eyes. The inscription, he says, brushing dust from carved words. Can you read it? Lyra kneels. The symbols answer her touch, a soft shimmer rising beneath her fingers. She reads, voice unsteady. The one who carries the poison wolf shall carry the fate of all. The air thickens. The fire inside her stirs, hungry. Kale steps closer until his shadow folds into hers. Fate of all, he repeats. You think it means you? She shakes her head, denial thin even to her own ears. It can't be. Then why does it look like you? He gestures, the wild dark hair, the silver streak along the arm, the glow beneath the skin. Every detail is her. Lyra backs away, heart hammering. I don't want this, she whispers. Whatever this is, it isn't mine. The cave disagrees. Sigils flare brighter. Silver light ripples outward like a breathing tide. The air hums, low and resonant, a sound felt more than heard. Kale catches her wrist. Lyra. His touch steadies and ignites. The fire under her skin answers, heat flooding through her arm, through his hand, into him. Their eyes lock. For a heartbeat the world narrows to skin and pulse and the invisible current jumping between them. Kale inhales sharply, molten gold climbs through his irises. Lyra gasps. I didn't mean. Don't pull away, he says, voice rough. The energy climbs higher, a living thread binding them. Symbols blaze, light crawling the walls until the entire shrine pulses like one vast heart. Somewhere EP, a low chime rings, not wind, not metal, a sound like the moon itself singing. Lyra's knees give. Kale steadies her, one arm firm, his other hand bracing the back of her neck to keep her upright. The touch holds, disciplined rather than intimate, even as it burns with power. A voice rises from the light, ancient, melodic, terrible in its gentleness. Child of the flame, heir of the lost moon. The bond awakens. Kale's head lifts, startled. What is that? The moon mother, Lyra breathes. The blood of kings meets the fire of the forsaken. Together, mend what the gods have broken. Light swells until it blinds. Lyra cries out as silver floods through her skin. Kale does not let go. Look at me, he commands, steady. She forces her eyes open. The world is only light, and him. Through the tumult, something clicks into place. Not spell, not legend, recognition. Then, as suddenly as it rose, the light dies. The shrine drops into silence. Smoke curls from the stone where their hands met, leaving faint brands like twin crescents. Lyra staggers back, shaking. What did it do to us? Kale looks at his palm, one mark a crescent, the other a flame. I think, he says slowly, it bound us. Bound. The word lodges in her chest like steel. She wants to tear free, but she can hear his heartbeat echoing faintly inside her own. She looks back to the mural, the woman of flame bearing the poisoned wolf, and knows with cold certainty this isn't myth or art. It's a memory the world has been waiting to repeat. The prophecy chose you, Kale says. Lyra meets his gaze, voice unsteady. No, it chose us. They stand in the thinned light, the mural dimming like an exhausted star. Outside, the first rays of sun spear the torn clouds and strike the cave mouth, blessing or warning, she can't tell. Kale steps close enough that his breath warms the air near her ear. If destiny wants us to burn, he says quietly, then let it start the fire. Lyra doesn't answer. The moon mother's words circle her mind, binding her to a road she never asked for, and beneath the fear, something new stirs, not only power, but purpose. Snow falls heavier as they descend from the shrine. The land feels quieter now, as if it is listening, waiting to see what comes of the bond the moon mother forced awake. Lyra walks a pace behind Kale. The air between them still hums with the shrine's strange current, but neither speaks of it. Some truths won't bear language. By the time the path opens into the valley, night is stretching claws across the sky. Distant fires mark sentry posts along the border of Kale's realm. Beyond them, longhouses and watchtowers lift from the snow, a settlement built of iron will and pine. The scent of wolves thickens, iron, resin, dominance. Lyra's pulse quickens. Every step toward pack land feels like stepping back into a memory she swore never to relive. They pass beneath an arch carved from bleached bone. Dozens of wolves shift to human as they approach, heads lowering to Kale, then lifting to look at her. Murmurs ripple through the gathered ranks, low and wary, like wind turning over blades. The word drifts first, thin as smoke, witch. It threads the cold air and snags on harsher syllables, cursed, flame, until the murmurs braid into a rope of fear. Kale's voice cuts that rope clean. She's under my protection. It stops most of them, but not all. A tall man steps forward, cloak bearing the rival sigil of the crescent fawn, smirk carved into frost. Protection? He sneers. You drag a witch into our stronghold and call it sanctuary. Kale's jaw locks. She saved my brother. Poisoned him first, the man says smoothly. Ask your council, Kale. Ask them what happens when you let magic bearers stain sacred ground. The accusation burns like ice. Lyra's hands curl into fists. She wants to fling the truth. I'm no witch, only a wolf who broke once, but the crowd has already decided what she is. Kale moves closer, authority radiating without a shout. She is here because I say so, he answers. And until I say otherwise, no one touches her. The challenger drops his gaze, but his mouth twists. As you wish, Alpha King. Even kings can bleed. The warning clings to the wind as he retreats. Lyra feels it in her bones like the pre-tremor before an avalanche. Kale leads her to the black timber hall. Heat rolls from the central hearth. Council elders in furs and silver chains study Lyra as if she were a puzzle made of knives. A frost-white woman speaks first. The Moon Mother's shrine sleeps for centuries. Tonight it wakes, and you return with a stranger who carries fire under her skin. Coincidence? Kale does not flinch. Believe your king. The woman's gaze slides to Lyra. And you, child, what do you expect? Lyra meets her eyes. Only the chance to survive. The room stirs. It is not the answer they wanted, not rebellion, not submission, only truth. Under the table, Kale's fingers brush hers once, a small, grounding spark no one sees, and yet its warmth lingers against her palm long after the touch is gone. The elders murmur. The verdict is already etched in their mouths. The pack does not want her. The pack never will. 3 nights later, the full moon climbs like a blade. The valley gathers for the winter oath, torches circling the clearing, drums steady as a great heart. Lyra stands at the edge beside Kale. His brother sits near the fire, pale, alive, eyes on her with gratitude, or is it caution? Every stare presses like the tip of a spear. Silver motes tremble beneath Lyra's skin. She hides them under her cloak. Kale steps forward to speak. A howl tears the night open before he can. Not celebration, war. Figures burst from the treeline. Wolves painted in ash and blood, banners of the crescent fawn snapping like black wings. Chaos detonates. Steel flashes. Fire scatters. Kale shifts mid-leap. A black wolf with gold fire eyes, and meets the first attacker's head-on. Teeth, fury, the clean grammar of a kill. Lyra runs before thought can catch her. The bond still humming from the shrine drags her as surely as a hand. A rival alpha lunges at Kale's ribs with a silvered spear. She sees it too late, and then the world slows. Blood ignites. Silver fire bursts from her palms and slams the attacker sideways. The spear clatters and the man drops, swallowed by light. Silence, for a heartbeat the size of a lifetime. Then whispers hiss. Witch, curse, unnatural. Kale shifts back, chest heaving, eyes wild, looking at her as if she is both shore and storm. You saved me, he says. She nods once. And doomed myself. The pack rings them in. No one steps closer. Even Kale's brother looks stricken, the silver in his gaze dimmed by dread. She brings death wherever she walks, an elder shouts. End her now, before the prophecy roots. Kale is between them in a breath, voice like thunder cracking rock. Enough. But fear multiplies faster than courage, torches lift, teeth bare. The clearing tastes of panic, not hers, theirs. Lyra looks at Kale. I told you, she whispers. They will never see me as anything but a curse. Let me speak for you, he pleads. You already did, she says. It isn't enough. By dawn, judgment. The first vote is execution, the old law rising like a specter. Kale's fury shakes the hall until no one dares speak the word again, but even his rage cannot pry apart a law older than any crown. Exile, then. Mercy by inches. When they bring her to the border, snow falls in pale sheets, erasing tracks as fast as they form. Kale stands apart, fists clenched, jaw locked, wolf gold burning through the storm. Lyra meets his eyes one last time. You fought for me, she says softly. More than anyone ever has. He steps closer, his voice fractures. You shouldn't go alone. I always have. For a heartbeat he looks ready to burn his own house to keep her, to break oath and bone. But duty chains him where he stands. The guards move. Lyra lifts her chin and faces the watching crowd. You fear what you don't understand, she says. But the moon sees everything. One day you will see me again. Silver light stirs under her skin, the promise of a blade inside a scabbard. You'll see my power, she breathes. And regret your fear. She turns and walks into the weather. The wind eats her shadow, her scent, her step, until only snowfall remains, and the hollow echo of Kale's heartbeat in the space she leaves behind. He does not follow. Not yet. Above the ridge, the moon slips its shroud and spills silver like a benediction or a warning, watching as prophecy takes its next breath. Snow does not stop. Days blur into white and quiet. Lyra moves like a ghost stitched to the horizon, cloak stiff with frost, skin burning wherever the wind claws through threadbare seams. She counts time by hunger and the ache in her shoulders. To stop would be to remember would be to break. Her fire lies quiet now, a steady shimmer beneath her ribs, no roar, only a watchful coal. She breathes around it, learns the shape of restraint. The world, however, has not forgotten her. A howl knifes the storm, deep and raw, threaded with pain. Not a threat, a call. Lyra's heart stumbles. She knows that voice the way a shore knows its tide. Kale. Gravity hooks through her and pulls. She stumbles through drifts to a hollow lit by a thin wash of moonlight. A sanctuary where snow melts in soft spirals and the air hums with old magic, the same pulse she felt in the shrine. He is there, crumpled against a fallen trunk, half shifted and bleeding, breath a torn thread. She kneels. Heat rolls beneath her palm when she presses his wound, wild, fevered. Why? She whispers. Why follow me? His eyes open, dulled gold, steady all the same. Because they were wrong about you. He coughs. Red darkens his tongue. And because I couldn't stay away. Her chest tightens. You should have. A small, pained curve lifts one corner of his mouth. I tried. Her hands shake. She pushes fingers to torn flesh, and the silver fire answers at last. Not rage, not ruin, obedience. Light threads from her skin into his, smelling of smoke and cedar and snow after lightning. He jerks, then inhales as heat spreads, not searing but stitching. Lyra, he says, voice cracking on her name. Don't speak, she breathes. It frays the thread. The glow winds along his veins. She feels his heartbeat steady, feels muscle knit and skin draw close. For a moment she is not cursed, not outcast. She is only whole. When it's done, she pulls back, emptied, steady. Color climbs back into his face. He blinks, dazed. You shouldn't have. I couldn't let you die. You could have, but I didn't. Silence sits with them. The storm rages outside. Inside the hollow, the air is hushed and sacred, folded around them like a promise they can't yet read. They build a fire. It crackles softly. Gold settles in Kale's eyes. He watches her for a long time without speaking. She lets the quiet stand. Some silences do not bruise. I thought I understood pain, he says at last. But what they did to you. She stares into flame. Don't pity me. It isn't pity. Then what? His answer takes a breath to form. Recognition. She holds his gaze until it presses somewhere tender. He shifts closer. Light lays soft on the scar along his throat. You hide behind anger, he says quietly. It's only armor, isn't it? She lets out a small, bitter sound. Armor is why I'm not dead. What happens when you don't need it? The question turns a blade inward. She doesn't follow it. I had a mate once, he says, voice gone to gravel. Her head lifts. She was wild, he says. Strong. The council said she'd bring ruin. In the end, they were right. His jaw tightens. I couldn't save her. I swore no other woman would burn for me. His eyes find hers, fierce, raw. Then you arrived, walking through fire like you were born of it. Lyra's breath hitches. The air changes, something unspoken stirring. Honesty is the only ground that does not crack. I didn't mean to burn him, she says, the Alpha's son. I was angry, afraid. He hurt a pup. The fire moved before I did. Kale's hand finds hers, warm, calloused, steady. Flame defends as surely as it destroys. Not in their eyes. Then they never saw you. The words land deep enough to loosen a wall she thought was welded. She looks at him, really looks. Scarred jaw, shadows under his eyes, the way his attention holds her not as prey and not as salvation, but as something real. The silence turns heavy. The fire ticks. The storm whispers beyond the hollow. He reaches out slowly enough for refusal. She does not refuse. His fingers trace the edge of the branded circle on her shoulder, the place the fire once broke skin and left its name. You think your flame makes you unworthy, he murmurs. I see the light beneath it. Her heartbeat stutters. The world narrows to breath and distance. The tension strung between them hums like a wire, longing braided with fear and danger. Their faces are inches apart. She can feel his breath, cedar, snow, steel, and for one fierce second she wants to let the world fall and simply feel. Fear slams back through her chest like thunder. She draws away. Air bites cold against her skin. Kale stills, confusion shadowing pain. I can't, she says. Not with all of them already hunting me. His voice roughens. Then let the world burn. She shakes her head. You think you mean it. Her flame flickers in warning. She steps back. He watches for a long time, jaw tight, eyes darker than the weather. Then tell me what you want, he says. Do I stay, or do I go? Moonlight gleams on the wet shine in her eyes. I want to trust you, she says, honest as a wound. I don't know how. His voice gentles. Then I will wait until you do. By dawn the sanctuary fire is a shallow bed of coals. Kale sleeps at last, back to stone, lines of exhaustion softened by the ember's small light. Lyra has not slept. The air feels wrong, a pressure like the valley holding its breath. She steps out. The silence is too still. It breaks not with snow, but with the thrum of wings. Figures drop from the ridge, half-shifted wolves in black cloaks, the crescent fawn's eyes and knives. Before she can draw a breath, one strikes. The world flips. Darkness eats the edges. The last thing she sees is Kale lurching awake, shouting her name as they pull her into the storm. They chain her in the frozen shell of an older temple, the one even Kale's ancestors left to ruin. The cuffs burn where silver touches skin. Sigils are carved to choke her flame. The rival Alpha steps from shadow, tall and sleek, voice slick as oil poured over ice. So this is the cursed Omega. The Firebringer. Prophecy in flesh. Lyra tastes blood and frost. You don't know what you're touching. But I do. His smile is a knife. Raw power. Untamed. The kind that tilts nations. You were never meant to hold it. I, however, can. He turns to his circle. Begin the binding. Their chant is low and old. The sound crawls into her chest and pries at the hinge of her will. Silver light bleeds up from the stone, climbing her legs like hoarfrost. She refuses the scream. It is not pain, precisely. It is intrusion, fingers rooting through her soul. The fire thrashes, trapped, wild, every heartbeat shatters like glass. The rival Alpha leans close, hunger in his eyes. When this ends, he murmurs, your flame will be mine. You will burn for me. He reaches for her face. The temple doors detonate inward. Snow and fury. Kale. He hits the guards like a storm given teeth. Let her go. But the circle has closed. The ritual snaps tight. Light hammers the air, turning breath to ash. Lyra's cry fractures stone. Silver fire erupts. Chains, altar, even the floor surrendering to its hunger. The power she strangled for years breaks free, uncontrolled, poisoned by the binding, roaring through the temple like a living thing. Kale reaches. Heat drives him back. Lyra's eyes blaze white silver, not the eyes she knows. The rival Alpha laughs, drunk on triumph. Behold the destroyer. Thunder splits the sky. Lightning forks across the mountain spine. Wolves drop to their knees in the snow, terror racing pack to pack. They will tell this night for centuries, the night an Omega burned like a god. Inside, Kale forces into the heat, blinded but unbroken. Through the blaze he finds only an outline, Lyra, shaking, trussed between agony and power. Fight, he shouts. You are stronger than it. She hears him through the roar, a thread of voice beneath floodwater, but the fire hisses promises. Let it burn. Let them learn. Faces leer in the light, every judge, every brand, every turned back. For one terrifying beat, he wants the world to glow to cinder. Kale's hand finds hers through the heat. It scorches him, but he holds. Come back, he says, voice breaking. Do not let them name you anything but what you are. Gold meets silver, and something shifts. The flame falters, listening. The rival Alpha's power surges. Kale drops to one knee. Lyra feels his heartbeat stutter through the bond she never meant to forge, not collar, not chain, a tether spun of spirit and flame. He is failing. Because of her, something snaps clean. She rises. Chains melt and fall like dead snakes. The fire doesn't fight her now. It becomes her. The air shimmers. Silver pours from her skin, pooling into the cracked floor, lifting in waves. The rival alpha staggers, fear scrubbing away arrogance. What are you? Lyra's voice is calm and terrible. I am not your curse. The fire unfurls behind her like wings. I am your Luna. It is not a human sound. It moves through mountains and marrow. Every wolf in the north feels their bones bow. Even those who begged for her blood lower their heads without knowing why. Kale drags himself upright, awe and grief colliding in his eyes. The rival alpha runs, the flame catches. His scream is brief. When the light recedes, only ash dirties the snow. The temple shakes. Stone splits. Lyra turns. Her eyes are softer now, almost her own. Go, she says. He steps toward her. Not without you. You don't understand, she says, voice trembling with the weight of it. If I am bound to earth, the fire will gutter. If I am unbound, light pours from the breaking floor. It will live. He reaches her. His palm finds her cheek despite the heat. You said you didn't know how to trust, he whispers. Trust me now. Come back. Silver wells at her lashes. I can't. Not yet. The ground opens brighter. Light pours like water. She leans her forehead to his. A touch that is not a kiss and more sacred than one. When the moon calls again, she breathes, find me. And then she is gone, dissolving into a tower of silver fire that spears rock and snow and night until only starlight remains. Silence. Kale falls to his knees. Across the ranges, wolves tip their heads and sing, not in fear, in mourning, because they know a Luna has risen. Somewhere beyond storm and stone, her voice threads the wind, soft, sure. I was never your sacrifice. I am the fire you tried to bury. I am the light you feared. The words fade, but their truth embers in every listening heart. Kale stares at the moon. It pulses once, as if answering. He presses a hand to his chest where her warmth lives like a coin of sun. Until the next moon, he whispers. Days later, the mountains still smoke. Ash drifts like phantom snow. The temple is no longer ruin but a bowl of molten glass, stones fused by a fire no mortal forge could shape. Kale stands in the heart of it, boots sinking in blackened earth. The air hums faintly, still warm with her. Her scent threads each breath, cedar and cold stars and something that cannot be named. Numbness would be mercy. He has never been given that. What fills him is quieter and deeper, a grief that beats with reverence. His pack approaches in silence. Even those who cursed her name kneel as they feel it, the pulse of what she left behind. It runs in wind and rock, in the mountain's steady heart. At the center of the floor, a single silver flame burns, small and stubborn, refusing extinction. Kale crouches. The glow fractures across his scars. He extends a trembling hand but stops short. The flame leans toward him, almost human, almost hers. He hovers his fingers above it. Heat licks but does not scorch. It pulses once, a heartbeat. He exhales, a prayer and a vow. She was here, a wolf behind him murmurs. Kale does not turn. She is. Silence gathers and listens. When he speaks, his voice carries iron. The Luna has risen. The words climb the shattered ribs of the roof and go on into the night. Heads bow. Some weep. Some almost smile. The old prophecies spoke of ruin. None dared speak of rebirth, until now. Snow begins again, soft and clean, settling over scorch and glass. The silver flame burns on. Kale whispers to it as if the space between worlds is thin enough to carry breath. If you can hear me, I'll wait. Under every moon, in every shadow, until your fire calls. The wind answers, faint, unmistakable, a brush against his ear like the suggestion of a touch. Not a word, a feeling, warmth, defiance, promise. It is enough. If this tale lit a spark in you, subscribe to Moonlight Romance Library, where faded souls, banned flames, and haunted hearts find their voices beneath the stars.